Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Sharbano, and today I'm joined by Catherine from George Washington University. Thank you so much, Catherine, for taking out time for us. Catherine works at the School of Applied Science and Engineering at the George Washington University as an Associate Director of Admissions, and she's here today to tell us more about applying for graduate studies in the US. I'll begin with introducing myself and then Education USA Pakistan. So I work as an Education USA advisor at Education USA Pakistan at the Lahore office. I did my Fulbright from the George Washington University from the Elliott School of International Affairs, where I did my master's in international development studies, and I specialized in climate resilience and monitoring, evaluation, and learning. My program finished in 2025, and this is my first job post grad school. So I'll be sharing my screen and giving everybody an overview of Education USA. Hopefully everybody is able to see my screen. Okay. So Education USA is known as USEFP, which is short for the United States Education Foundation in Pakistan. And we provide advising in each city, actually all over Pakistan, but we have offices in Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad, where we provide students with personalized guidance. The Fulbright program is our flagship program. I'm a Fulbright alumna myself. So, what is the Fulbright program? The Fulbright program supports Pakistani students who want to pursue graduate studies in the US, whether it's a master's or PhD program. This is a fully funded program which not only supports students with tuition fee but also with living costs, which includes the stipend, books, food, transportation, and even an airfare return ticket. And the Fulbright program is all over the world, but every year the most number of students all across the world are selected from Pakistan. Okay, so what is Education USA? So Education USA is part of the US Department of State, and it's present wherever there is a US embassy, and we provide you with accurate, current, and comprehensive information. And we also offer resources and guidance on how to find the best fit university which fits your needs and criteria. So, what all services do we provide? We provide one on one advising, both in person and virtual. You're free to visit our office in FC College anytime and talk to us one on one. We also provide free in house and virtual sessions like the one we're having right now. And we're also having a physical event in our office in FC College this Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. About AI and harnessing artificial intelligence. And we have a very interesting speaker lined up for you guys. So if you want to join, just register at our website. In addition to that, we also provide free workshops on the GRE, SAT, and TOEFL. So we also have Lincoln Corners all across Pakistan, but the ones in Punjab are in Lahore, Sargodha, Faisalabad, Multan, and Bihari. And the Lincoln Corners serve as American spaces where you can visit, access the resource, a library, and all the resources that the Lincoln Corner has to offer. So what you can do is that you can register for our free advising services. If you go to educationusa.pk/register, our advising services are free of cost. And you can email us at lahore@educationusa.org if you have any queries. Follow us on our social media handles to stay up to date on all of our upcoming webinars and other events. You can connect with us on Instagram, X, and Facebook. And these are just some handles of the Lahore Consulate. We do have events in collaboration with them. So if you ever want to attend or know what the consulate is up to in Lahore, follow their social media handles. That's it from my end. I'll stop sharing now. Over to you, Catherine.
Thank you so much for having me today, and good evening to everybody who is on this call right now. It's early morning here in Washington, D.C. It's about 9 a.m. on the Eastern timeline. So first thing in the morning, I'm beginning with you guys, which is great. As has already been shared, my name is Katherine Hugins. I work at the George Washington University, specifically the School of Engineering and Applied Science, where I am the Associate Director of Graduate Admissions and International Partnerships. And today I'm going to talk to you about identifying and applying to graduate programs in the United States, what to look for, typical admissions requirements, how to fund your studies, and also a little overview of GW Engineering, just so you get a better sense of where I'm coming to you from, the school that I represent, and things of that sort. So again, this is the agenda for today. Identifying your program, typical admissions requirements, some tips and recommendations, and then a example of the timeline that most of you might be on, and then an overview, and then we'll open things up to a Q&A, so you can ask me any questions that might come up throughout today or about your own profile or things that you're considering. So to start, if you are interested in studying in the United States, there are a lot of options for you. In the United States, we have over 4,000 institutions at the higher education level, so at the bachelor's and master's. You can see here the star where Washington, D.C. is, which is where I'm talking to you from today. But there are a lot of options, and so things to consider are always going to be most obvious is going to be where are you going to be most comfortable? What's going to feel good for you? So consider if you want to be in a city or if you want to be somewhere rural. Do you want to be in a large school or a smaller program? Things like that can help you just to identify general regions of where to look at. Do you like the cold? Washington, D.C. has all four seasons. So we're just starting summer. It's getting very hot here. But this winter, we also got a decent amount of snow. So that's something to consider versus if you wanted to look more towards the south where things would be warm all the time, or northern where it's going to be a little cooler. Those are things to take into account. But also, when you're identifying your graduate program, you need to consider the actual academics because if you're applying to graduate school, you are looking for a master's or PhD program. This is advanced learning. You've already done your bachelor's and now you're looking to specialize in a niche field of study. So consider a couple different things like the duration of the program. If you're looking at a master's, are you looking for to do this as quickly as possible? Are you looking for a 1 year program, or do you have time to maybe take a little longer, maybe a 2 or 3 year program? Those are some options that exist out there. Also consider the facilities. If you are a student interested in a specific area of the hard sciences, what labs and research spaces does the university have that you might be able to take advantage of as a student? Um, that's going to help you to maybe identify where you're going to be able to do the best work that interests you. One way that can help you to narrow schools that maybe you aren't familiar with is to actually look at the research that's already happening in your field. Look at the papers that you've read before, the projects that you've relied on or looked to. Who is doing that work and where are they doing it? They'll say, it'll be in their credits. They'll mention if they're working at a specific university or where they got their graduate or postgraduate degrees. That might help to also guide you to a school that you might not be familiar with. There is, of course, always the obvious starting place of looking at university ranking lists, QS, US World Best News, Times Higher Education, but ranking is only ever going to tell you very limited information. Um, when you're looking at ranking lists, you always need to be aware of what's the methodology of that ranking list. What information are they actually compiling? A lot of them are looking more at sometimes undergraduate student experiences, which when you're looking for a master's program, might not be super relevant to you. So that's a good starting out place to maybe learn about some schools that you might not know about. But doing this additional research of looking at the research happening in your field, checking out the different websites, looking at what's available to you can help you to narrow down options that maybe might not be in the top 10, but are still better fits for you. And things that can help to identify successful programs to consider would be to also look at the opportunities to gain experience during that program. If you're a student who's interested in doing an internship during your studies, look for schools that offer that opportunity, who maybe have a requirement to do an internship or something like that. If that's not of interest to you, you can always look for programs that don't have that, that maybe you just really want to focus on the actual work you're doing in the lab. You want to focus on the coursework that you're going to be taking. Universities are not hiding that information. We'll post our bulletin, we'll post our course descriptions. You'll be able to see what courses you need to enroll in if you do apply to that program. And that can help you to get you a better sense of what a master's degree or a PhD at that school might look like. And then, of course, always look at post-graduation opportunities. Look at the career services websites that schools have, the data that they're sharing about where their graduates go on to be employed, um, uh, what their average salary is, where they're living in the world. Again, schools are not hiding that information. We want you to know about the successes of our programs and our students. And so we make it readily available for you to help you during this specific timeline when you are really doing that research and narrowing down your options. And then consider, of course, the alumni network. When you're in a graduate program, it's going to be maybe 1 to 2 years. If it's a PhD, you're looking at more like 4 to 6 years. But that's a very short amount of time. It might not seem like, it, but I promise, think in the span of your lifetime. And so beyond that, the majority of your time you will actually be part of the alumni. You will be connected to the university through your shared history. And so looking at how wide and how broad an alumni network the university has can help you to maybe find people locally who you can connect with. Um, so as Shabana just mentioned, she's actually a graduate of George Washington University. So potentially you could discuss with her what it was like to be in Washington, D.C., what it was like to be a student at GW. And you can see what has happened to one of our graduates and where they're working and how that's going. So considering the alumni network is always going to be helpful for you when you're looking to identify a specific program to apply to. Another thing that students overlook during this research phase of scanning schools, learning more, is to actually look at the student resources. Look at what the university makes available to you. So look to see, as I mentioned, that career services, that's a little obvious, but also look at what kind of advisors do you have? Do you only have access to your faculty advisor, or are there other people on campus who are going to be able to support you during your time as a student? What about student health services? What do you do if you get sick or you hurt yourself or there's an accident? What resources are there available to you at the university so that you can get the care you need immediately? Libraries, where are you going to be spending most of your time studying? Are there opportunities for tutoring if you need additional academic support? Or what if you're struggling to write a paper and you need assistance with reviewing and editing your work? And then, of course, consider student organizations. Your entire time in your graduate study, your graduate program is not only going to be academics and career focused, you're also going to have a lot of time to have a life and live in that city or that county and be a part of that community. So if you're very keen on um, water polo or you're super into film or you are very into cricket, are there organizations and student teams that you can join? Is there already an existing um, group of people who you can share that with? Or is there a way for students to begin their own organization? Can you start a team associated with the university that you apply to? Again, those are ways that can help you to get a sense of what your day-to-day life will be like at the university that you choose to apply to. And of course, when you're applying to graduate programs, you're not just applying to one. So keeping a list, a running tally of the different resources and information you're finding for each school, knowing when you receive that admissions offer, what are the pros and cons of each school will certainly help you to make a decision as to which offer to actually accept. Now, in terms of graduate admissions requirements, those are all going to be pretty standard. Obviously, each school might have a little variety, but for the most part, they are going to be asking for some very basic information, right? All schools are going to require that you submit an application. You're going to have to identify what specific platform they're on, make an account, things like that. But the application itself is asking for biographic information, it's asking for work history, academic history, it's asking for some general information about you and your pathway to graduate study. And then you'll have to provide, of course, copies of your transcripts and academic records. Always be sure to review the requirements to see if they require official transcripts or if unofficial copies are accepted. Um, at this point, a lot of schools do accept unofficial, but it's always good to verify. And then, of course, as international students, you need to consider, do you need to provide a external credential evaluation? Do you need to get a company like WES to review your transcripts from your home country and do a credential evaluation to turn it into a US GPA or anything of that sort? Some schools do not require that. So, for example, here at GW Engineering, we do all the credential evaluations in-house at no additional cost to our applicants. But some schools don't have that ability, and so they do ask that students submit an additional document if they're international and studied outside of the United States, and then look at what test scores are required. Do they require the GRE or the GMAT or the LSAT? And if they do, when can you take those exams? Where can you take them? How long do you need to allow yourself time to prepare and to study and to actually do the exam and maybe allow yourself time to retake it if necessary? As international students, do you need to submit English language proficiency scores? The most common ones, of course, are TOEFL and IELTS. Some schools may or may not accept Duolingo English test. So reviewing those requirements, do you have to provide them? If you do, what are the actual admissions minimums? And then as well, is there any English support class that you might need to take and enroll at the university, or is there a higher threshold you need to meet? So, for example, at GW Engineering, at GW in general, we have an admissions minimum for English language, and then we have a English for academic purposes waiver minimum. So, what that means is that if you submit an IELTS score of 6.5 overall, you can be admitted to GW Engineering, but you will have to take an additional English support course during your first semester. Versus if you submit 7.5 overall, you don't need to take that class. So that's something to be aware of during that admissions requirement. So make sure that you're paying very close attention to the information posted on the websites by the schools. And you can always reach out to the individual admissions offices to clarify any of these details, to ask for more information if you're not able to find it on the website so that you have that information. And then, of course, you will be required to provide letters of recommendation. These be sure to pay attention to the specific amount required. Do you need to submit one letter, two letter, three letters? That might vary if you're applying to both master's and PhD programs. And then pay attention to do you need to submit letters of recommendation from specific authority figures? So do you need to provide academic and career letters of recommendation, professional, or does the school not care? Is the school willing to let you submit whichever recommender you believe will best um, advocate for you? Some schools really do want to see letters from professional advisors, professional employers, versus some who only really want to see academic letters, people who from your professors or your faculty who have worked with you in an academic setting in a classroom or a lab. And then a lot of schools are going to ask for some very typical things like the statement of purpose. They might call that the personal essay. Um, the statement of intent, what have you. That's going to be your opportunity to really explain why you're applying to this institution, what you want to do with this degree, where you see yourself in 5 to 10 years, how this specific program at this school will help you to get there. And then you'll be asked to provide as well a copy of your resume or CV to explain what you've been doing in your background outside of the classroom up until now. As I mentioned, requirements can vary widely by program and school. So I've mentioned a couple times what GW engineering requires. That might look very different from what GW business requires or what the Elliott School of International Affairs at GW requires. So making sure that you're not just looking at general requirements for a university, but you're looking for these specific requirements for each school. And then of course, within a school, those requirements might vary as well. So, for example, at GW Engineering, for our master's programs, we only require 2 letters of recommendation, but for our PhD program, we require 3. That's something that if you're only looking at our master's application list, you're going to miss that. And then, of course, most important is application deadlines. These are going to be wide ranging. They're going to be very different depending on where you're applying. So make sure that you are paying close attention. What is the actual deadline to submit your application? Is that the deadline to submit the application, or is that the deadline to have all of your materials completed? So what that means is, do they need to have all your letters of recommendation and your test scores and your transcripts complete and certified by that date? Or do you have additional time to submit those things after you've actually turned in the application? Some deadlines are going to be rolling deadlines. That means that there's not going to be a hard deadline. Schools will continue to accept applications as they go, while other schools might have very strict deadlines where if you are not complete by that date, you have missed out and you're going to need to move to defer your application to a future semester. I will say PhD applications typically have a very strict deadline. Um, but again, make sure that you are looking for that information on each institution's website. They are not hiding this from you. I promise you, their requirements, their deadlines are all going to be publicly available for you. But if for whatever reason you struggle to find it, you're not seeing it in front of you, again, there is no harm in sending an email or scheduling a meeting to clarify any of these questions. Um, the admissions officers like myself are really there to support you in this journey and to make sure that you have all of the information available so that you can succeed during your application process. So some tips that I just want to make you aware of when you're applying to a graduate study. Um, Make sure you're asking your recommenders ahead of time. That might seem obvious, but I will say from personal experience, I was not aware when I was applying to graduate school that uh, the application system that my institution utilized would automatically send a request to my recommender as soon as I put their information in the application before I submitted it. So in my mind, I knew who I was going to ask for my letters of recommendation. I was pretty certain they were going to say yes. I was filling out the application, but I wasn't planning on submitting it that day. I filled out those recommenders info just to have it in there. And I was planning on sending an email later that week to ask for the official letters of recommendation to make sure they were okay with writing one for me. Um, and then I had the fun of the very next day getting an email from one of my former professors asking me, are you applying to graduate school? I just got an email asking for a letter of recommendation, which was incredibly awkward for me. And I would recommend not experiencing that. Thankfully, that professor was a wonderful sport. She was a big supporter of me in my journey, so she happily wrote that letter, but it was a fun conversation. I would say for you, always reach out to your former employers or your professors beforehand. Send them an email, schedule a coffee chat, what have you, and really talk to them about where you're at, why you're considering applying to graduate study, why you want a letter of recommendation from them specifically. Um, I would say if you're reaching out to a former professor who you maybe haven't talked to in a little bit, reminding them what class you took with them, if you took multiple classes, all of them, maybe what grade you got in the class, and what about that course specifically has stuck with you and made an impact. Like, why are you going to this professor? So, if that former professor of mine hadn't reached out to me ahead of time, I would have explained to her that the class I took with her in my sophomore year really challenged me academically and that I found great value in our one-on-one conversations when I used to go to her office hours. And I thought she had the best sense of me as an academic. And I got an A in her class. I did very well. I had copies of my old papers that I would have shared with her if I needed to remind her of who I was. And then for your resume and CV, this is really where you should highlight any research or publications that you might have. Please let us know. That is great information to have, especially if you're applying to a PhD program. Highlighting that work that you've been doing uh, is always going to be beneficial. Your resume, of course, is there for you to highlight work experiences. You can also include internships. You can include projects that you've worked on if you maybe haven't had that opportunity yet. Really, just to share some information about what you've been doing outside of the classroom, right? And then the statement of purpose, the personal essay, what have you. If you're really staring at a blank page and you don't know what to write, a good frame of reference for a first draft is going to be past, present, and future. So start off by talking about what you've done previously. Um, uh, if you're applying to a computer science program, do you have a background in computer science? What are you doing right now? Are you currently about to graduate with your undergraduate degree? Are you working in the field? Are you doing something completely different? And then future, why do you want to go to a graduate program? Why this school? How is this program going to fit into your future goals? If you're making a big change, this is where we would expect you to explain why are you switching from studying um, history to suddenly wanting to study chemistry. This is where you can explain what's happened in your life and what you want to do to make that change. The other thing I would say is obviously we're all aware that AI exists. Generative AI is out there. There are tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, um, OpenAI, whatever you'd like. I would strongly, strongly, strongly recommend that you not use it during your application, during your statement of purpose. Um, this is your one opportunity in your application to speak directly to the faculty and admissions review committee. Everything else in your application is going to be things you can't control, right? You can't go back in time and change your grades that you got in your first and second year of your program. You can't control what your recommenders say in that letter of recommendation. You can't really control what you've done to put on your resume and CV. You can choose how to highlight it best, but you can't go back and give yourself the best internship or job experience possible. These are just some cold hard facts, right? Your test scores, that's just data. You can't really change that. But your statement of purpose, your personal essay, this is your one human opportunity to talk directly to the admissions committee and explain why you're applying to graduate school. And you should be able to articulate that. You should be able to put into words why you're applying to this program, what it's going to help you with, and what you hope to get out of it. So, if you absolutely must, using it to edit might be helpful, but please don't use it to write your own statement. For one thing, at this moment, generative AI at best is aggregating the average, right? You ask it to write a statement of purpose, and it's going to give you the most basic expected average statement of purpose, the general, uh, you know, aggregate of what a statement of purpose should look like. That's not what we're looking for in a statement of purpose. In a statement of purpose, we are looking for specifics. We are looking for your story. We are looking to better understand you as an individual and not you as an AI output. So that would be my encouragement. Please write it yourself, ask friends or professors to read over it and help polish it. But I really believe that you can do it on your own. And then my last tip, of course, is to look for application fee waivers. There's no harm in asking an admissions office if they offer them. If there are ways to attend a webinar like this and receive a fee waiver to help uh, make that application process a little smoother for you, it's always going to be something that's worth asking. And then I just wanted to identify a sample timeline right here. It says fall 23, but I was supposed to change that to fall 27. Right now we are in spring summer of fall 20 or of summer 26. So you're a little early, but for fall 26, that's really when you should begin identifying programs to apply to, doing that research that I talked about at the beginning, taking those necessary tests, like if you need to do the GRE or the LSAT or anything like that, asking for those references for your letters of recommendation, practicing your statement of purpose, editing and refining that resume CV. Um, because starting in December of 2026, January 2027, that's when you're actually going to be submitting and completing those applications and actually waiting for those admissions decisions. Um, that can take a little bit of time, especially if you're applying for a fall intake. The application review cycle is usually a little longer. It's going to take about 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the school you're applying to. So if you're applying in January, you might not get a decision until the end of February or beginning of March. And once you have received that decision, that's when you should begin attending admitted student events or making appointments with university admissions or faculty members to really talk about um, what are the next steps, why should you go to that program, how is it going to best benefit you. Because then once you've made a decision, once you've accepted that offer from the school you want to enroll in, that's when you get to about this time of next year, summer 2027, which is when you start working with the institution to receive your I-20 to apply for your F1 visa, schedule your visa appointment at your local U.S. Embassy or consulate, register for classes for your first semester, and then arrive on campus and really begin your program. Um, so that's just a sample timeline of what this process looks like. If you're looking more for spring 2027, we're probably right in the middle of that submitting and completing application timeline, maybe finalizing some of those details like your application requirements. Because for spring, the deadlines typically are going to be in August, September, maybe October. So again, make sure you're reaching out to schools to ask about that information. And then I'm sure a lot of you are curious about how to fund your graduate education, your studies. There are typically going to be merit-based scholarships that your university will offer. Do your research. What types of funding does the school offer? Do they have resources about external scholarships? Um, Look for opportunities for scholarships that might have to do with your area of study or the country you're applying from, anything like that, the research that you want to work on. Also, look into campus employment and other tuition benefits like that that might be offered through your current employment, things of that need. Of course, there's research assistantships and teaching assistantships. I will say that might vary what that looks like at different schools. I know of some schools that call all campus employment assistantships versus at GW Engineering, assistantships are only going to be those individual TAs and RAs who work with faculty. And for us, we typically do that at the doctoral level, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Some schools might offer need-based grants. There's also student loans. There are a lot of different resources out there to learn about the different scholarships and ways of funding your education. So, again, attend a lot of different sessions like this to learn about opportunities, um, connect with admissions officers, and as I keep saying, do your research because we are providing that information as much as possible to share with you. Now, at GW Engineering, I wanted to highlight a couple different funding sources that we have. So we do offer merit-based scholarships. I've identified two of them here, but we offer a couple more. All of them are going to be tuition discounts that reduce the overall tuition by a certain percentage. So some of our more common ones are the C's Merit Award or the C's D's Award. We also have the Achievement Award, which is about 35%, and our Distinguished Award, which is our most competitive at 75%. Um, those are merit-based scholarships. What that means is it's going to be based on the academic merit of your application. It's going to be based on your prior academic studies, the strength of those letters of recommendation, what exactly you're saying in that statement of purpose, which again is why I really encourage you to write that yourself and not utilize AI because it can make a big difference in the funding review. And for our purposes on our application, there's a very simple question that asks if you want to be considered for funding by the university, and so long as you say yes, you will be considered for one of these awards. As a PhD student, as I mentioned, that's where you're going to see those more typical assistantships, those where you might receive full funding. Um, Typically, our PhD students are going to receive full funding through a tuition benefit, and then they will also receive a teaching or research or graduate assistantship where they will be working with their faculty advisor, either helping in the classroom or the lab or working as their specific assistant, and they might receive a salary and a stipend as well as that tuition remission. And then, of course, there's funding outside of GW Engineering, as was shared at the beginning of the hour. There's Fulbright awardees, there are government and military sponsorships, there's company sponsorships. And our website has a lot of different resources as well for you to peruse. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about GW. At this point, we were founded in 1821 by an act of Congress. We are unique in that we're predominantly a graduate institution, so we have more students sitting at the master's and PhD level than the undergraduate. We are based in Washington, D.C., as I already shared, which is the capital of the United States. Our main campus is in the neighborhood of Foggy Bottom. We're about 10 minutes away from the White House and the World Bank and the IMF and other large international organizations. We are a member of the American Association of Universities, which we're very proud of. That really reflects the high level of research happening on our campus. And we are made up of 14 colleges and schools, which includes the GW School of Business, the Columbian College of Arts and Sciences, the Elliott School of International Affairs, the School of Medicine and Health Sciences, and of course, the School of Engineering and Applied Science, where I'm talking to you from today. We do have 6 academic departments and now 12 fields of study. We've just announced a new program. And we have 80 tenured and tenure track faculty members, which is great for our students because it really offers you that opportunity to have a one-on-one relationship with your faculty. You're going to be taught by your professors in relatively small classrooms. Maybe our largest class is about 60 or 50 students or so for some of those intro courses. But as you get further along in your program, those classes are going to get smaller and smaller, and you're really going to get individualized attention, and you're going to get to benefit from our faculty who are doing research in their area of expertise, who some of them are working in the field in the greater Washington, D.C. region, um, and more. So you get to benefit as well from their connections in the area. Um, that can help you to really identify what you'd like to do in the future for yourself. Here you can see a list of all of our MS and PhD programs that we offer on campus full time. Um, Two new programs that I did want to identify right at the top are my master's in artificial intelligence and machine learning and my master's in AI and engineering in electrical and computer engineering. And those are two brand new programs. AI and machine learning is launching this fall, while AI and engineering was just announced. And so we are beginning to do intake for that maybe spring 2027. It's going to be brand new. We're very excited. Uh, if it says master's only, that's just to clarify, we do not offer it at the PhD level. But if it doesn't say master's only, we offer it at both the master's and PhD. Our master's programs are typically 2 years in length, though sometimes students can finish it more like a year and a half. And our PhD programs are typically 4 to 6 years in length. That will depend on if you are coming in with a prior bachelor's. We do allow students to apply direct entry with only a bachelor's. So if you know that you want to get a doctorate, you are welcome to apply. It is going to be a little bit more competitive if you don't already have a master's. We are going to be looking for dedicated research experience, a publication or two to your name, and a compelling explanation for why you want to uh, go this non-traditional route of moving from a bachelor's to a PhD directly. Of course, our main building is our science and engineering hall. That's our home base for all of our engineering students in Washington, D.C. It is a LEED Gold certified building. It's a class 100. We have a class 100 nanofabrication clean room, a high bay with a strong wall and a strong floor for those civil engineering students, as well as some high resolution imaging suites. We also have some interdisciplinary research spaces with the other hard sciences on campus. So, for example, our School of Medicine has a cancer institute on that upper eighth floor. Um, so, lots of different opportunities to engage in research if you're interested. And I strongly encourage you to participate in our virtual tour if you can't visit us in person. It is a VR tour that allows you to really walk around our building, get a sense of where you might be spending the majority of your time if you were to enroll at GW Engineering, to see the different study spaces, the classrooms, the office floors, as well as some of those highly specialized research labs. We were able to get into, for example, that class 100 nanofabrication clean room and record some of the research that happens in there. So you can get a peek inside and maybe see where you can spend some of your time in the future. In terms of admissions requirements for GW Engineering, as I said, these are pretty standard to what we talked about earlier. You have to fill out an application. We do require English language test scores for applicants from outside of the US. The GRE is not required. So if you'd like to submit GRE test scores for your master's or PhD application, you're welcome to, and they will be considered if we have them. But if you don't want to, no harm. It will simply not be a factor in the review process. We require 2 letters of recommendation for a master's, 3 for PhD, statement of purpose, resume, CV. We do require that applicants have unofficial transcripts and at least a minimum of a 4-year bachelor's degree or equivalent. And our deadlines never change. So if you are looking for spring 2027, that deadline will be September 1st. And for fall 2027, that deadline will be January 15th. What I will say is that for masters, those are priority deadlines. So I encourage you to get those applications in by that date if you're especially hoping for funding. For PhD, those are hard deadlines. We do not accept late applications. So all materials must be submitted and completed by that date. I do strongly encourage you to connect with a graduate ambassador. I have a handful of students who work in my office and represent their programs and allow you to ask about their experiences studying in the GW, what their program is like, if it's computer science or biomedical engineering. I will say right now it's summer, so I have a smaller cohort of ambassadors at the moment, but that number will increase as we get closer to the fall semester and onboard some new ambassadors. But you are always, always welcome to reach out to them and ask about what it was like moving to Washington, D.C. to begin graduate studies. And then, of course, we talked a little bit earlier about resources. So I did want to make you aware that we have our W. Scott Amy Career Services Center just for the School of Engineering. So GW does have a general career services office to benefit all students. The School of Engineering also has our own career services center to help with career guidance, to do resume building, interview prep. If you receive a job offer, they can help you to negotiate that salary. They'll help you to strengthen your profile and make you competitive and attractive to different employers. They'll bring companies to campus for career fairs and interview opportunities. So please, please, please engage with their office as soon as you can if you were to enroll at GW Engineering. Again, a master's program is going to go by much quicker than you think it will. So working with career services from day one is going to be really beneficial to you. And that's true whether you come to GW Engineering or any other school. In the United States, career services is a resource, but it's usually not something that we force you to engage with. So it's really going to be up to you to take advantage of the resources provided. And then I just wanted to leave you with a quick explanation, a highlight about the different internship and work opportunities in the United States. So most students typically who study in the US as international students will be on an F1 student visa. So if you do come to the US on an F1 visa, you will have a couple different opportunities to engage in work. CPT is curricular practical training, and that is the opportunity to work in your field of study during your program. Typically, you do that after you've been in the program for 1 year. So if you begin in fall, by the following summer, you can work in an internship. So long as it is not the academic year, you can work more than part-time. So during that summer break, you can get a lot of experience. One of my student workers right now is literally leaving for Austin, Texas, this weekend so that she can go intern at Dell for the summer. And another one of my students is doing an internship with Stanford um, on a cybersecurity research project that she's very excited to work on this summer. And those are the ways that they are utilizing their CPT. And they might be able to continue to do that into the academic year. That's going to depend on those specific employers and what they offer. And then OPT is optional practical training. That's what allows F1 students to stay in the United States post graduation and gain work experience. All F1 students are eligible for 12 months of OPT so long as you have a job offer and employment. And certainly you will have international services offices and people on campus who will help you to know these deadlines and submit the appropriate paperwork. And then some select students are eligible for the OPT STEM extension, which is for students in select STEM programs, so science, technology, engineering, mathematics, who are eligible for an additional 24 months of OPT. So on top of that initial 12 months that all F1 students get, some students in STEM programs receive an additional 24 months, giving them 3 full years of work experience in the US before they have to return home or move to China or Germany to further their career or begin a new area of study or things of that nature. At GW Engineering, all of my programs are eligible for the STEM OPT extension. Um, but that is always a good question to ask when you're applying to schools, especially in the STEM fields. Does this program qualify for STEM OPT? Um, just good things to keep in mind when you're applying. And then that is the end of this session. I know I talked a lot and I hope it was interesting to you. I am always happy to answer any more questions if you'd like. You can always email my office at engineering@gw.edu. You can do research at our website, check out our social media. But at this point, I am happy to answer any questions that might have come up during the program. Um, there we go. And happy to answer these. Let me see. Okay, so I see a student asked about if we have education programs at George Washington University. We do. We have a Graduate School of Education and Human Development. It's going to depend on the specific program you're interested in, so you're going to have to do a little bit of research. Unfortunately, I don't work for GSHED, but I am an alumni of that school. I got my master's in international education from GW. That was back in 2020, so it's been a few years now. But you are certainly able to review those programs and apply. They might have different deadlines than what I spoke about earlier, but good to keep in mind. Um, I see a student asked about bachelor's information. Unfortunately, the session was about graduate study, so master's and PhD. Bachelor's is a little different. Much I much different in my experience. But you are always welcome to reach out to my undergraduate admissions office. Um, they're always going to be hosting sessions as well, opportunities to learn more. And I'm sure Education USA also hosts some sessions about undergraduate study to be helpful for you. Um, Okay, I see a student asked about doing a master's in business at George Washington University in one of our related fields and if they have scholarships. My understanding is that the School of Business does offer some merit scholarships. I'm not sure what the exact amounts are, but you can always reach out to their office if you need. They offer not just the traditional MBAs that I'm sure you're familiar with, they also have some specialized master's programs like business analytics, finance, project management, sports management, tourism and management, things like that. So go check out their programs, their website. I'm sure they will happily share any information about what their scholarship opportunities are. And some of those programs at the School of Business are STEM OPT eligible. So double check with them if it is, just so that you're aware of what opportunities you might have post graduation. Um, okay. I see another student asked about nursing at GW. Um, I I'm not familiar as to whether or not they require a GRE, and I can't say for certain anything about individuals' profiles, about what your CGPA is, and if that means you'll get admitted or funding. Um, an admissions office will always need to review your complete application admissions profile before a decision can be made. And sharing some basic data isn't going to be enough for me to share that info or make a decision or know your chances. Um, I do not know if the GRE is required for nursing, but you can always look that up on their website, reach out to their offices. What I will say is this person was asking if GW Nursing would accept English proficiency letters from the registrar's office of an international university. And what I will say is that no, that is not a way to waive the English requirement. For George Washington University, it is typically going to be based on where you previously studied. Um, there are some schools and countries where an English waiver might be available. So you can reach out to the individual admissions office to see if you qualify for one of those. But a letter from the university confirming that English was the language of instruction isn't going to be sufficient to waive that requirement, unfortunately. Um, Oh, I see we had a high schooler in attendance today. I'm not sure if you're still on the call. I would say, wow, you're working very ahead of time to be attending a graduate info session today as a high schooler. Um, I would say at this point, you should be focusing on where to apply for your undergraduate studies. Paying attention to the information that I shared at the beginning is definitely going to be helpful. So, looking at the research happening, the resources on campus, the labs, things like that. If you know that one day you want to get a master's or a PhD, um, checking out the school for that information. Some universities will offer a combined bachelor's and master's program. So if that's something you're interested in, you can take that into consideration now as you're looking at undergraduate schools. So for example, at GW, uh, we do offer what we call the combined 5-year program. Students can't apply for it until they're a junior, but it is something that you can know coming in as an undergraduate might be an option for you. And so keeping that in mind when you're applying to different schools and looking for what would be a good fit is going to help you. Um, wow, lots of undergraduate students. That's good to know. Always happy to see this. Okay, I see a student asked, when will applications open for fall 2027 and when will the classes begin? So the exact timeline of when the applications open might vary. I believe for GW Engineering, our fall applications might be open. I might be, they might not be. This is the period of time where we're getting ready to probably turn it on so that eager students can begin working on their application. It will definitely be opened by August at the latest. Because again, our deadline is going to be January 15th. We want to give you guys a few months to be working on your profile and your application. Um, some that's going to vary for schools. Some schools will already have it open. They might even be already making decisions. Some schools might keep it locked tight until mid-October. It's just going to vary. You're going to have to reach out to the individual schools to ask. As for when classes begin, fall 2027 means that those classes will not begin for GW until the end of August 2027. So about 14 or 15 months away. So this is a perfect time to begin your research, to be figuring out what you want to do, to be attending sessions like this, to identify programs, uh, and then classes will begin at the end of August. Um, a student asked if how do you know if a PhD program accepts students directly from a bachelor level? That's a great thing to ask the admissions office. So for GW Engineering, like I shared, we definitely do. It is very competitive at that level, but it happens. So attending some of our info sessions for our PhD programs will help you to learn a little bit more about what our faculty are looking for. Somebody else asked if there are any alumni in nursing. There definitely are. Again, encourage you to reach out to the admissions office for help. They'll happily share that information. Somebody else asked about, do schools provide research grants and financial aids? That's just going to depend on each school that you apply to. At GW Engineering, we offer merit-based scholarships. We do not offer need-based scholarships. We do have resources on our website about external scholarships, loans, things like that. And then research grants are things that my faculty receive, and so they might onboard students for assistantships. What I will say at GW Engineering is that we typically reserve assistantships, teaching, research, graduate assistantships for doctoral students at the point of admission. It's not impossible for a master's student to receive an assistantship. That student who's interning at Dell this summer in Texas has an assistantship with one of the computer science faculty. But that didn't happen until she'd been in the program for about a year. She developed a relationship with her faculty. That faculty member invited her to work as his graduate assistant. Um, but again, that's something that happened over time through developing that relationship with the faculty, attending office hours, really getting to know the professor personally. I see somebody asked that for applying for master's, can we email the professors first or not? I would say for a master's program, it's typically not required to reach out directly to faculty. Mm, We do make our faculty's emails and research interests available, so you're certainly welcome to. I would just say that my faculty are very busy. You might not get a response. Don't be discouraged if that happens. But you are certainly welcome to send that email. They might forward you on to my office to help you out. For PhD, some schools are going to require that you have connected with a faculty before applying. Um, Always a good thing to clarify with the admissions office if that's required or not. For GW engineering, we do not require you to have that pre-connection with the faculty. You can apply directly. Some of my faculty ask that at the PhD level, you only send an email after you've submitted your application to let them know that it's in the queue for review. Um, but yes, you are always welcome to email those faculty just so long as you keep an open mind. Don't get too hung up on getting a response or not. Um, Okay, I see a student asked, does having a CGPA of 2.95 make it difficult to get admission? They said specifically computer science. What I will say is that uh, admissions offices will always list what the minimum CGPA is that they're typically looking for, but that is by no means a cut and dry thing. So, for example, GW engineering, we typically like to see a 3.0 or higher. I have certainly accepted students who have lower CGPAs and higher CGPAs. It's really going to be based on the overall strength of your application. So, if you are worried about that CGPA, writing a stellar statement of purpose, getting strong letters of recommendation, highlighting the work you've done outside of the classroom in that resume will really help you. Um, there are a lot of great other questions that I would love to get to, but I know we are at time now. It's already a little after 10 a.m. for me, and I know the session was supposed to end already. So please, if you'd like, send an email to my office at engineering@gw.edu. Happy to answer these questions via email. You are more than welcome to connect with me that way. Uh, and I hope if you're interested in applying that you do so. We would love to have you here. And what I would also say is that if you are interested in applying to and oop, I sent that email to the wrong thing. If you are interested in applying to GW Engineering, I do have an app fee waiver to share in the chat for you guys, and that's going to be EducationUSA Engineer 2026. So if you use that fee waiver, it will waive the fee when you submit your application just for GW Engineering. So don't try it with other schools, but for us, it will work. Thank you so much for attending. Sherbana, I don't know if you want to wrap this up and say a final message.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time for us. This was really insightful, very informative for me as well. I got to know about all the amazing programs that the School of Engineering and Applied Science at GW has to offer. And we hope to continue collaborating and have webinars with you in the future. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you.